Hey everybody, this is Dr. Daniel Davila, and on today's video I want to discuss fat, cholesterol, and my recent trip to a doctor's office, which was a enlightening experience to say the least. So let's go ahead and get into this. First of all, a lot of people don't realize that cholesterol is actually something that you need in your body. It's very important for a broad range of bodily functions, not the least of which includes digestion. It's an integral part of the structure of your cells. Every individual cell in your body has cholesterol in the wall of it that is used in communication between the cells. It's also important for hormones. If you don't have cholesterol, your cells and your body cannot signal within itself appropriately. And lastly, it's very important in the production of vitamin D, which if you don't have adequate levels of vitamin D, well, you're in a bad spot in terms of your health. So you need cholesterol. Typically, when people think about cholesterol, they think about what's called HDL, high density lipoprotein, and LDL, low density lipoprotein. And these are widely regarded as HDL is good, LDL is bad. Now, in my opinion, there's really no such thing as good or bad cholesterol. It's all a matter of the ratios of these things in your body and how your body is processing them. So let's go ahead and look at this. So a couple weeks ago, I went to go get my blood work done, and this is what they came back with. They ended up calling me the next day. The nurse told me, the doctor's had a chance to assess your blood work, and he's come to the conclusion that you have high cholesterol. And because of that, you need to get on a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet immediately. A couple months, we'll get you checked out again, and if the numbers are still high, we'll talk about steps we need to take at that time. Now, I asked if I could get a copy of my blood work, and I did. A couple days later, I got in the mail, I opened it up, I started reading off the numbers and calculating them, and it was in doing the calculations and finding what I did that I became very disappointed, not only in the assessment that I had high cholesterol, but also in their recommendation that I should get on a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet. Now, here's the thing, as a general rule, I am not a low-fat, low-cholesterol person. I love bacon and eggs. I eat sausage and peppers. I put MCT oil and butter in my coffee. I use avocado oil, coconut oil, oregano, olive oil. I do not shy away from using fat in my cooking or in my diet. And it's because of the fact that there really is no research to support the idea that eating low fat, low cholesterol is healthier for you. And we'll get into that a little bit more here in just a second. Anyway, I opened up my file and I took a look at my numbers and I saw that my total cholesterol level was at 228. Generally speaking, they want you at 200 or less, so they can take a look at that and they can say, oh, you've got high cholesterol. I really don't. Well, we're going to dig into this here. My HDL level was 59. Generally, they want it above 40, so that's pretty good. My LDL level was at 151. They typically want that at 129 or less, so again, they say that that's high. And my triglyceride level was sitting at 91. They typically want that at less than 200, so my triglyceride level on its own is looking great. So here again, if we take a look at the individual numbers, it can look like there are some problems here, but it's really not the case when we dig in and we do some calculations. Now this is based off of research that was published in the journal Circulation in the late 90s. Now in this research, they showed that more important than any one of the numbers individually is the ratio of your HDL to your total cholesterol and your triglycerides to your HDL. In fact, that triglyceride to HDL ratio was listed as one of the most potent predictors of heart disease that they found in their research. So when I calculated this out, my HDL to total cholesterol level or ratio was 0.26. According to this research, you typically want it higher than 0.24, so that's good. My triglyceride to HDL level was at 1.54. Typically, you want it at 2 or less. If you get to 4 or 6, you're in trouble. So they typically want it to be 2 or less, and I'm sitting at 1.54. I have a very low number as a predictor of my risk of heart disease, which means I have a very low risk of heart disease as a person who eats a high-fat, high-cholesterol diet. So here's a problem that I had with this. I'm a relatively educated person. I'm a physician, I'm a chiropractor. Diet and nutrition were actually part of the core curriculum of my education. And I spend a lot of hours in postgraduate study looking at diet, nutrition, physiology because it's important. It's a very important subject to be able to discuss with my patients in addition to the chiropractic work that I do with them. Now, as a physician, as an educated person, they're giving me this advice. I cannot imagine what happens for a layperson who goes in there not knowing what I know, not knowing how to calculate these things for themselves, who's given that advice. Now let's think about this. If I followed that advice and I switched to a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, well, I have to do something to make up for the fat and cholesterol. And what we see is when people do this, they tend to replace the fat and the cholesterol with higher levels of carbohydrates, higher levels of processed and simple sugars, which actually increases their risk of heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and cancer. So if I was a layperson, I followed this advice and I went back in a few months, I could very reasonably suspect that my numbers are going to be worse. And so what happens at that point if I go back and my numbers are worse? Well, they may recommend that I get on medication. And one of the most commonly prescribed medications for lowering cholesterol is a statin drug, statins. And unfortunately, research shows that in 2015, the Journal of Expert Review of Clinical Pharmacology, they published a study that showed that people who got on statins were at increased risk of atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, and heart failure. So not only did the poor dietary advice lead me in the direction of having worse levels, I'm now at increased risk of getting put on statin drugs, which may increase my risk of heart failure and heart disease. The British Medical Journal Open also showed that in their studies, statins saved fewer lives than eating sensibly, exercising, and avoiding smoking. So here is what I would like you to take away from this. Number one, fat and cholesterol are not your enemy. Getting on a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, especially if you're going vegan or vegetarian, is typically not the best thing for your health. It may lead you in the direction of increased risk of things like heart disease and obesity, cancer, diabetes. Number two is that, I'm not looking to blame any individual practitioner here. I'm not looking to say that this doctor is a bad person. The thing that we really need to be aware of is that the guidelines that are being followed to make this determination of saying that I have high cholesterol and I need to take a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, the guidelines are faulty. They're not based on the best available evidence. And thank goodness this is starting to come out now. More journalists are reporting on this, more scientists are pointing this out, more research is coming out showing that the information that's coming out in the 70s and 80s saying that people should get on low-fat, low-cholesterol diets is just wrong. It does not improve people's health, and in fact may worsen it in several regards. So keep this in mind. If you go to your doctor's office and you're told that you have high cholesterol and they want you on a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, you may want to get a second opinion. You may want to look at this a little bit more discreetly, a little bit more in-depth, so that you can avoid your problems for yourselves. All right. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this information, if you found it useful, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. I do intend to make these videos on a little bit more frequent basis just to share some information. Any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down below, and have a great day.